You're listening to the weekly Parsha Podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel 5779, 2019. This week's Parsha is Parshas Matos and Masei in the States, and Masei in Eretz Yisrael. We finally have caught up to Eretz Yisrael, and I'd like to share with you a vort, a concept, an idea from the Parsha, which is common to us, which is Parshas Masei. And before I do, I was just thinking, isn't it interesting that it took so long for us to align? And there are all kinds of reasons behind it. I'm not familiar with them, but I think it's not a coincidence that we catch up, that we're all reading the same Parsha right when it gets to Parshas Masei, right before Tisha B'Av, right before the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, right before we're saddened and we're all in mourning. We all mourn together. And we all take stock together. And that's going to be a bit of what we're going to speak about. But I think it's very beautiful that the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed in this time. The Beis Hamikdash, we hope, will soon be rebuilt. And the only way that that's going to happen, it was destroyed because of sinas chinam. It was destroyed because of baseless hatred. It will be returned because of love for no reason, because of us joining together, coming together. What better time to come together, be learning the same Torah, the same Parsha, than Parshas Matos-Masei, Parshas Masei, as we come into Tisha B'Av, the week of Tisha B'Av. So I'd like to share with you a thought. At the beginning of Masei, so the Torah gives us a whole list of all of the different locations where the Jewish people traveled throughout the 40 years that they were in the Midbar. And it goes through each individual location, reminds us of the different things that occurred in those locations, the different sins that the Jewish people had, the different ways that Hashem protected us and took care of us in those different locations. And I was thinking about, last week we spoke about gratitude. I was thinking about how important it is to take stock and to recognize each of the places that we personally have been throughout our lives. And we learn this from what the Torah's description of the Jewish people's travels. And of course, Kadosh Baruch Hu always helps me each and every week, over 12 years now, Baruch Hashem, to find something that's meaningful, something that's touching, something that inspires me. And there's a piece from Chaim Friedlander at the very end of Sefer Bamidbar, brings over here the reason. This is a 2-page word, okay? So we're going to have it, and I'm going to share with you some thoughts, some of my own experiences, some of my own recollections from my own life of Siyata Dishmaya, of special divine assistance that I don't think that I've ever shared with anybody ever, except maybe my family. But I'm going to share with you because I want to encourage you and inspire you perhaps to think about your past, think about your lives. Okay, so the Reb Chaim Friedlander says 5 different reasons, 5 different purposes for the Torah, giving us this list of locations. Let's see what they are. Haramban. First, he brings the Ramban. He brings the words of Rashi. The Torah paid attention, or made it important to mention each of the different places that they visited. The purpose of it was in order to mention the kindness of Hashem with the Jewish people. Very interesting. Okay, even though Hashem had decreed upon the Jewish people that He would take them and they would have to go through travails and difficulties in the Midbar, in the wilderness, for 40 years. Don't think that they were constantly on the move, constantly traveling. Don't think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it in a way which was cruel and that they had no opportunity to rest. The entire 40 years, they only had 42 different locations that they stopped. Like Rashi says. Okay, so the first point is to recognize within the punishment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the negative thing that the Jewish people had to undergo, which was the 40 years in the wilderness, there was a chesed. Hashem planted inside of the punishment a kindness, that there were long periods of time where they stayed in each location. They weren't constantly on the move. That's point number 1. Point number 2. Rashi, Hevi mi Tanchuma, something very interesting. Rashi brings from the Medrash. Mashal melech. It's an analogy to a king. Shahaya b'nei chayla, whose son was sick, and he had to bring him on a very long journey in order for him to get better. On their way back, after the son was already better, they followed through and they went back over, they reviewed. It could be that they actually stopped again in each of those locations that they had traveled on the way there. He said to him, Kan Yashananu, this is where we slept. Kan Karnu, this is where we were cold. Kan Chashash V'Roshcha, this is the place where you had that big headache. The purpose of it was the king took his son, the prince, through each of those places in order to remind him of all the things that went on, all the negative things that had occurred on their way to get well. Says Reb Chaim Friedlander, the purpose of this was in order to remind the Jewish people of their sins. It's important for a person to always remember their sins, not to dwell on the negative. But actually, as the Madrigas Adam I recently read, the Alter Navardik says that there has to be an honesty. There has to be a recognition of the things that I've done wrong in the past. I need to be honest, not to dwell on it, not to be depressed, but other way around, in order to build a better future for myself. I need to be able to be honest and recognize the things that have gone on in my past in order to be better in the future. And in the same way, the Jewish people were reminded of the things that they had done wrong, not in order to lambaste them and make them feel sad and depressed and worried that perhaps Hashem hates them or something like that. No, in order for them to know the real score so that they could correct those things. Like the Rabbeinu Yoina says, it's in Shari Tshuva, V'chein roi l'kol bali tshuva, lichtoi v'megillah sefer. It's appropriate for a person who has done tshuva, who has already changed his ways, the negative things that he's done. He's become greater and better. Still, write down the things that I've done wrong. Those things that a person has stumbled in, and the mitzvahs that he hasn't performed properly perhaps. And to remind them of that every day. And perhaps we could even say that the idea is, just like the king was saying, wow, look, Baruch Hashem, thank God, you're better. Look at the contrast between the way things were and the way things are now. The Jewish people also are about to enter into Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel. They're about to experience an amazing spiritual high. God is going to be with them in all of their battles. But don't forget where we were. Don't forget where we had challenges, where we defied God. We need to remember, in order to remain healthy, the prince needs to remember the way it was and the things that he's done wrong. He needs to change those things and continue to listen to the advice of the doctor. And Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest doctor, the greatest spiritual doctor of all time for the Jewish people. And he said to them, remember the things that you've done wrong, so in the future we don't repeat those mistakes. And the Baal Tshuva, the person who has repented, each and every one of us who has become strong in our relationship with Hashem, we need to remember the mistakes that we've made so we don't repeat those mistakes. Very important. Unusual statement in today's times. We like to hear how good we are. But it's important to be honest and recognize the mistakes that we've made as a tool. Not to be depressed, not to be sad, but to be honest and recognize what we need to do to be better. That's the second point. Third point, Chazal Amru, our sages say, Kol Oisan Mem Shana, all of those 40 years, She'asisam b'midbar, Lo hinachti eschem levroyach, Hashem did not allow the Jewish people to run away. First of all, Hashem kept them together. Okay, so there was a certain level of unity. Second of all, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that any enemies that came to fight with the Jewish people, they were knocked out. Because I was with you. There were so many dangerous animals there. There were snakes and scorpions and all manner of wild beasts. Right? The verse says in Deuteronomy chapter 8, refers to the snakes and the scorpions. I did not allow them to hurt you. Because Baruch Hu says, I was with you throughout your time in the wilderness. I protected you. I took care of you. That's why Hashem said to Moses, write down all of the travels that the Jewish people went through in the wilderness. They must be reminded of all of the miracles that I did for them. How do we know this? Because we see that it was written all of these different details, all the places that they visited. So Reb Chaim says to us, Al Yedei Hazkaras HaMakomis, by mentioning each of the locations, it reminds us of all of the different experiences that the Jewish people had in each of those locations. So this helps the Jewish people and us to remember the kindnesses, the amazing kindnesses of Hashem. Like Rabbeinu Yonah writes, we need to remember, we need to write down, remember for ourselves. I will share with you that I have a personal blog that I write only for myself. Different little hashkacha pratis, the moments that Kadosh Baruch Hu has shown himself in my life, the different coincidences, so to speak, that have happened, numerous, too numerous to count. Write it down, write it down, write it down for yourselves. This way we remember the kindnesses of Hashem. The person needs to remind himself of those kindnesses of Hashem and think about them, contemplate them. Shenemar, as it also says in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2, person needs to remember all of the paths that Hashem brought us on for 40 years. I need to make little hints for myself. Oh, the miracle of D2R, darkness to redemption. What a miracle. What a miracle. I created this album. So many people supported it and helped me get it through. D2R. Not R2D2, D2R. Okay, number 4. Okay, so we have so far, what do we have? We have HaKadosh Baruch Hu does chesed with us, even though He's punishing us. That was number 1. Number 2 was remember the mistakes that we've made so that we don't repeat them. And number 3 is remember the kindnesses of Hashem so that we always keep that in mind. We can always contemplate that. Hakar Satov, thanking God. Number 4. Haramban Hevi Midivrei Harambam. The Ramban, Nachmanides, brings from Maimonides, from the Rambam, Rav Moshe ben Maimon. Ki ksivas hamasoisi lechizuk ha'amuna. An amazing thing, that mentioning all of these travels and travails of the Jewish people is to strengthen. One of the purposes is to strengthen our belief in Hashem. To remind us that there were amazing miracles that Hashem was doing for us. Not just the simple chasadim, day-to-day, daily life things, protecting us from the nechashim, but there were outright miracles that occurred. V'kach Kosav, he says like this. Toyelas b'yidi asam. What is the purpose of knowing about all of these different masois, these travels? It's greatly important to remember all of these different masois, the travels. They were absolutely clear, absolutely true to whoever saw them. What happens with the passage of time in the future? It's going to be, secondhand information, where it's hearsay. Right? The person who hears it won't believe it. How could it be? What? Hashem provided 40 years every single day for the Jewish people, all of the food that they needed, the man, miraculous bread. How could it be? It's something that could be denied because we didn't see it. This is one of the most awesome miracles that the Torah testifies to. The Jewish people were there 40 years in the wilderness, and every single day the manna fell for them. They were in a place which was far away from where people dwelled. It wasn't a natural location for a human being to live. There was no date trees, there were no grapes, there were no pomegranates. The verse tells us in Deuteronomy chapter 29 verse 5 that the Jewish people did not eat bread. And they didn't drink any wine. They didn't drink any beer. How did they manage without wine and beer? You know what I'm saying? V'chol eila oises heim, but they did because HaKadosh Baruch Hu took care of them. Amazing miracles. V'chol eila oises heim b'maisa nes. All of these were signs that occurred. All of these mentions of the Masos referred to these miracles. Nearest la'ayin, they were seen by people, by the people who Moshe Rabbeinu was talking to. And Hashem knew that time would pass, and this would just be a description of times that happened long ago, 3,300 years ago, as of today. It could be something that people would not believe in. People could think that it was really close to where people lived. For example, where the Arabs live today, which there are many Bedouins who live in wildernesses, but they're not that far away from where people live. It might be a place, a wilderness, where there was places to be involved in plowing and planting. Or it could be a place where there's different herbs or different things that could be eaten. Maybe there's pits of water there. The Torah specifies, makes it clear that was not the case. The Jewish people passed through a place that was impossible to live. It was impossible to live in those locations if not for the miracle that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did every single day for them. The purpose of mentioning each and every one of the locations that they passed through was so that we know exactly where they were. In all of these different locations, far, far away from inhabited areas. So that we should have the ability to be aware of the fact that the Jewish people were completely provided for by God. So that's point number 4. Chizuk and Amunah, strengthening our belief in Hashem and recognizing that there are amazing miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing for us all of the time, just like He did then. He's constantly doing miracles for us. Number 5, last point. Chazal Amru, very interesting. Eila Masei, it's a medrash in Bamidbar. Eila Masei, lama zachu likase b'Torah kol ha'masos ha'elo. Why did each of these places merit to be placed in the Torah and to be mentioned, to be remembered for all time? Why is it that indeed each of these places was mentioned? Because each of the locations, the Jewish people were received by that place, so to speak. We're speaking about an inanimate object, a place, right? But each place received the Jewish people. Hashem is going to give a reward to each of those locations in the future time when Mashiach arrives, when the Messiah arrives. Right? That there's going to be a rejoicing in the wilderness. And V'tifrach kachavatzeles, the whole location is going to blossom, bloom. Perach, flowers, tifrach, v'tagel, arava, v'gomer, etc. It's going to rejoice. Okay, so we see that each of those places that provided a place for the Jewish people to stay, a respite for the Jewish people from their travels, they will be rewarded. In the future, when Mashiach comes, they will no longer be a wilderness. They will be a place. The Sinai desert will turn into an exotic and blooming, lush place. Koyach HaKaras HaTov, says Reb Chaim Friedlander, that the power of recognizing the good, Hu HaYoseh B'Avodas Hashem, is the foundation of serving God. The Torah extends its discussion of the travels to express thanks to the locations that they received Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people. And the very fact that Torah wrote about each location expresses the Hakaras HaTov, the thanks that Hashem has on behalf of the Jewish people and that we have for each of those locations and places that we've gone. And I think back. I was recently thinking back to something that happened in my life 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I have an anniversary coming up of my first solo. I was in a choir as a child called the Miami Boys Choir. I came in when I was 9 years old, and I was just a member of the choir for the first year. I didn't have any solos. My first solo was a song called Mehira. Mehira, Mehira, Hashem Elokeinu, Yishoma, Yishoma Be'orei Yehuda. You can actually find me singing it on YouTube as a child and now. And so that was my first solo. And I had that solo, not Motzi Shabbos Nachmu, but the following Motzi Shabbos, there was a concert. And it was originally supposed to be Motzi Shabbos Nachmu. It was outdoors. It rained. It was rescheduled for the following week with a tent. And I got my first solo. I was chosen. But there was such hashgacha pratis that I was able to get that first solo, that I had the confidence for it. Because at the beginning of that summer, there was a man, his name was Yisrael Landsman, of blessed memory. He's no longer with us. But he had created he had rented a theater. There was a theater in Woodburn. And he had all kinds of games. And he put on shows. He would do magic shows himself. And he had a keyboardist who would play some music. And he hired me as a child. It was the first time I was ever hired, I think, to do a job, to sing somewhere. And he hired me at the beginning of the summer. I sang, I don't know if I did it once, I did it twice, I don't remember exactly, but it was enough that I had a lot of confidence in singing that song. And I sang that song, Mehira. Now, the way things worked in the summer was that many of the kids, the regular soloists, were off in camp. So we had a concert on originally mostly Shabbos Nachmu, then the following week. And many of those kids weren't around. And when it came to the song Mehira, this particular song, he needed a soloist for the low part. The kid who was usually doing it wasn't around. And he turned to me. I don't remember exactly why he turned to me. He said, I think he may have said, who knows this song well? And I raised my hand and I sang the song. And I had so much confidence because the beginning of the summer, I had been doing that song for Yisrael Landsman. And I got the solo. Now, another part of the hashgacha pratis of it was that my parents didn't know I was going to get the solo. They were, of course, excited and happy. But I had a friend in the choir who also lived in my neighborhood who also got a solo in that song. I believe it was his first solo as well. His name was Adam Goldschmidt. And his parents were there with a video camera. So even though my parents didn't have their video camera there, they had no idea that it would be a concert of note. We were able to get the film from this friend who lived in our neighborhood in West Hempstead. And so that's a Maisa from 30 years ago. And I still remember and I still appreciate the siyata d'shmaya, the help from heaven. I'll tell you a story from this week, a little story that happened within the working on this album, Darkness to Redemption. So I promised people 5 bonus tracks. And one of the fourth bonus track that I did was a song called Mi Anochi. It's a very nice song. Davenin, it's called. Very nice song. Mi Anochi Sheskele Hispalel. So it's a song that was recommended to me that I should know the song. And I learned the song and I produced the song for this album. And that day I sent it out. As soon as I sent it out, one of the people who were my crowdfunders writes back to me immediately and said, I was just thinking yesterday, I promise, I was just thinking yesterday that I wish that Ari Goldwag would do this song for one of the bonus tracks. And I wrote back, well, I laughed, of course, and I said, Hashem loves you. You know, when Hashem does a little thing, even the fact that he put it in this person's head to think of that song and wish for that song, and then I did the song. Like, those are little coincidences that are HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving us a kiss. And we need to write those things down. We need to remember those things. We need to recognize those things. And that's what the Parsha is teaching us. Remember the past. Remember all of the stops along the way. You know, Baruch Hashem, have done 19 albums in the last 19 years, which is an amazing, amazing thing. So much siyata d'shmaya, so much help. There was Lichuas Chakivinu, there was Simcha Belibi, there was Pure Soul, there was Shabbos Get Ready, there was Shevis Achim, volumes 1 and 2, Shevis Chaverim 1 and 2, Am Echad, the English album, Acapella Soul 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the new one, Lo Nefsik L'Rkod. These are all stops along my journey in music I could also go through, wow, so many things I've learned, so many people I've met, my Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Per, so much in learning, so many Masechtas. I learned, in first year Beis Medrash, I learned Nedarim. In second year Beis Medrash, I learned Kedushin. I repeated that Masechta in the mirror. Now I'm learning Beitza. I finished Brachas, Sukkah. 11th grade was Sukkah. Baba Kama was 12th grade. All of these addresses, all of these points, significant traveling points, different Sfarim that I was inspired by. The beginning, I was for 12 years ago, I was quoting from Rav Avigdor Miller. And then I was quoting, and I was always been quoting from a Rosh Hashiva. And then I got into Ramchal, I got into Rabbi Nachman, Reb Nosson, and the Ishbitzer. Now very much I've been quoting from Reb Chaim Friedlander. There was a tkufa where I was very strong in the Medrash, creating my own ideas. All of these are paths, all of these are stops along the way. How much akarsa tov, how much gratitude we can have, how much recognition of the miracles that Hashem has done for us. And also, it's important not to forget, because it's easy not to think about this part, but also it's important to think about the mistakes that we've made and how we've corrected them and appreciate the fact that we've moved on and moved higher. I want to bless you. I ask you to bless me. Hashem should help us, that each and every one of us should recognize all of the amazing things that Hashem is doing for us on a constant basis. Write it down. Remind ourselves. Hashem should help us to recognize that He's constantly in our lives, doing miracles for us, whether it's many, many years ago or whether it's today. Throughout all of that time, Hashem is always with us. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.